Worship is a practice that will put you into a state of being so that the full spectrum of things that he has to give you and endow you and bless you with come to you as quickly as it's possible. Every human being on this earth is in a form of worship. It's not just praise. There's something happening that is so profound. Everything you want in this life is on the other end of worship.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sick of Joseph YouTube channel. First time watchers, we have a channel favorite, two channel favorites. Dave Butler having a great conversation with Todd McLaughlin, who has an awesome way at looking at some gospel principles. He goes a little bit more into worship and what that means. If you guys liked last week's episode with Jonah Barnes, that is just one of 12 bonus videos that you get when you buy the Lost Gems of Genesis. How the Apocrypha proved that Joseph Smith fixed the Bible. Mind-blowing book. You're going to want to get a copy. Link in the description. Without further ado, on to Todd McLaughlin.
Todd, welcome.
Hey, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. So we were talking, Todd, you're such a interesting guy with so many. I think of you as like somewhere between like a philosopher and a mechanic. As a real like some of the smartest guys I know are mechanics. Like I love my mechanic. I have mixed feelings at my doctors.
Quote Kant while I'm doing my oil change.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. My doctors, they forget who I am one visit to the next. My mechanic knows me. He's really thoughtful. He remembers the inside of my car engine. Mm-hmm. He knows how things work. Mm-hmm. I think of you as a guy who's very thoughtful about how things work. So I love talking to you. Before we started, we were just kind of sitting around the palatial studio here and considering what to talk about. And you suggested that maybe we should talk about worship.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to do that. We immediately cut off the conversation and jumped on the mics. So I actually am not sure I know what you mean.
Okay.
So tell me, first of all, when you say worship, because all I know is that you distinguished, you said, worship as opposed to priesthood, or worship different from priesthood. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by worship?
Well, I think what I wanted to kind of communicate was, how passionately I feel about priesthood and the doctrine of priesthood. And what I've learned in the last, maybe 8 or 9 months has been so profound in my own life that if I had to choose, if I was going to have the Lord teach me about worship or priesthood, it would be worship, actually, which surprises me. Because, growing up, worship's not a foreign term to you and I, or anybody who's listening. I mean, we talk about worship all the time. And because it's so fundamental to just the religious experience, I think worship gets, it doesn't get addressed a lot because it's like, well, we worship in the temple, we worship in sacrament meeting, but also worship's very, has an evangelical feel to it, right? Those are our evangelical friends who haven't quite caught up with the restoration yet. So they're kind of stuck doing this sort of performance thing, mm-hmm. maybe. A lot of people have certainly been tuned in to the power of that experience. I know a lot of friends who are LDS who are like, I want to go spend Sundays with my evangelical friends because of the energy and the spirit that gets cultivated in those meetings.
They have electric guitars in their bands.
Yeah, they have, that's what we immediately jump to, right? All the funny things. But worship itself isn't something that, I think that it's one of those things that we check the box on. Like, we know what this is. Let's keep going and let's move on from it. And, I don't know if I need to get into the nuts and bolts of the personal experience, but as I was sort of rounding the corner of 2024 and learning a lot of new things, and you know how you get personally directed in your life, the Lord will take you to certain things, he'll put them on your heart. And when you find out you have a question on your heart, it's important to pay attention to it. And some people I was listening to were bringing up this concept of worship more and more. And so I started kind of leaning into it and studying it. And then in maybe early February, late January, had an experience where the Lord says, well, I'd like you to worship me in a personal, private way. And I thought, okay, well, let's try this, because we've had conversations about prayer, right? We've had mm-hmm. really good conversations about prayer, and prayer is something I feel passionate about, and I've mm-hmm. learned a lot. But what's this worship thing? And so I just started trying it.
Mm-hmm.
So at night I would go to the Lord and say, okay, I'm here to worship you. This isn't my prayer time. Maybe I didn't even know how to think about it. Like prayer time is usually where I go to the Lord and I make my case and I ask for blessings and for myself and other people. And it's a lot of please blesses and prefaced by a lot of please, thank you for this and that. But this was a different approach. I'm going to worship God. Feels frankly a little bit clunky, a little out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
It feels a little forced, but I feel like the Lord is pushing me into it. So I'm going to try it. So I sat there on my couch and I said, okay, Lord, I'm here. I'm going to worship you. You are great. I worship you. And it felt very forced. But what I found was as I leaned into that sort of developed the momentum of the Spirit. And I felt things being given to me what to say of how to worship him and how to acknowledge him, and would speak those things. And it was almost like riding a bicycle starting in that first gear where you're just trying to pick up a little bit of speed and you're kind of getting some momentum. And then I ended up having this really remarkable experience in that my worship and acknowledgement of him turned into prayer, but it was an entirely a different experience. And so that initiated this, what was that? Why did I taste and experience something very, very unnatural to my normal gospel living life? So what started there began an incredible learning experience. So when the question is asked, what is worship? I have like 15 definitions of it. Because it's not just praise. There's something happening that is so profound that if I were to identify a silver bullet in the gospel that takes you from the theoretical learning experiences that we talk about. Like, for example, think about how often in the church we say the joy of the saints or the joy of the gospel or receiving great revelation. We should be having all of these profound experiences of the gifts of the Spirit. And you read the scriptures and they're just packed full of profound experiences. But then you zoom back into the normal Latter-day Saint living, and there seems to be sort of this delta, this gap between experience and profession of what we believe. And in the last 10 years, my question has been, how do I go from what I understand the Lord has taught me in theory from where I am today? How do I bridge that gap? What is that bridge? How do I get there? Because I believe he's taught so much. And now I believe that worship is primarily that bridge. So I'd like to, if you're interested, have a discussion about what worship is, because boy, this is the most profound thing I may have ever learned in my life.
Yeah, I would love to. I have maybe a couple initial questions or thoughts. One to sort of, and maybe the answer to this will become clear over the course of the discussion. But when you say studying, so you said a couple people that you pay close attention to brought up the theme of worship, and so you engaged in a course of study. I'm curious, what does that mean? Like how do you study? You sit down to study a topic like prayer, priesthood, or worship. What are you doing?
Oh, like my own study?
Yeah. What is that?
Maybe for my whole life, I've done this, but in the last 15 years, though,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like when the gas hit the fire.
Yeah.
I very much listen to carefully what my heart is telling me, what's coming on my radar, what the Spirit is suggesting to me, what I'm listening to, what's piquing my interest, what questions are coming up. Because I've only ever read the Book of Mormon sequentially twice in my entire life, but I read it deeply every day because it's topic driven. It's not to say that's better than reading it sequentially, but that's just been what's happened.
That's how you've done it.
I'll take a question. So, and this is kind of backing out of the worship question, but it feeds into it. What are some of the hardest questions in the church? What's the endowment?
Yeah,
What's polygamy? I take those questions and then what's key in learning is getting the question right so that the Lord can answer it with the most direct line of sight. And what I've learned is that most often why questions aren't answered for me is because I'm not formulating the question right. Because if he answers the question in the way that I'm formulating it, he may affirm premises that he can't. And if he gives me an answer in that current iteration, the premise that will be confirmed would be detrimental to me in the long run, because I'm going to assume he taught me something that he hadn't. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But I go to the Lord and say, okay, I have a question about, I don't know, the endowment. And I say, I understand that there's probably preparatory knowledge that I have to have before I can get the answer. I want a level F answer, and I don't know what A, B, C, D, and E are yet. So I ask him, please direct my learning by giving me the first thing that I need to learn about and help me actually formulate that question. So I ask the Lord, what's the question I should be asking? And I listen carefully to that, and I get that question. And because the Lord gives it to me, I have faith that it can be answered. And I write it down, and I go to the Lord, and I pray incessantly about it. And I read the scriptures, and I try to put myself into a position where the Spirit can actually teach me something that hasn't been taught before, because that's kind of the principle of a broken heart and a contrite spirit, that your heart can be amendable to something that's expansive. And then that puts me on a trajectory of learning, if that makes sense. But what I've learned about worship is that worship can put you into that posture quicker maybe than anything else. We learn in Alma 32 that you can, if you are compelled to be humble, sometimes, Alma says, you will seek for repentance. It's much better to initiate humility. Most of my life, I think of humility as like, it's sort of a temperamental posture, right? Something that you replicate or you manifest temperamentally.
Oh.
The spirit of humility is an endowment given to you, and it's an awareness that all good things come from God and his goodness. Humility is cultivated by a knowledge or understanding of the love of God that he has for you.
Mm-hmm.
To humble oneself just means to be obedient without parameters, without conditions. You say, God, I'm going to be obedient to you is the first order of my day, is the first thing I want. And that's actually how you humble yourself before God, I believe. Worship is a practice that you can do that will put you into a state of being that you're actively humbling yourself before God, so that the full spectrum of things that he has to give you and endow you and bless you with come to you as quickly as it's possible. Because usually why we don't get answers to prayer or insight or the blessings we seek is because we're not in a posture or orientation to God that he can give it to us safely and would be a blessing to us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what worship does. So
worship is. So would you say prayer is part of your worship? Like is worship the case that goes around to prayer to make the prayer on
that's a great
footing?
way of putting it. That's a great way of framing it. And this is why it's kind of hard to talk about, because it's a new thing. And so it's like I have all these definitions of what worship is.
Yeah.
And maybe it's helpful to kind of talk through a couple of experiences and then kind of talk about it.
I would love to hear those experiences. I mean, the thing that sort of occurs to me that I've noticed for a long time about us Mormons, I love. There's something great about the way we pray. When we can pray consciously and not by rote,
Mm-hmm.
because we tend to pray as we bear testimony, just by rote and just saying the words, and this is placeholder. It's just a reminder you should really be praying. But the practice of just speaking with God as you would speak with someone else is beautiful and wonderful. There's a piece that we sort of omit that seems to be authentic and scriptural, and you see it in the Lord's Prayer, right? It's the doxology, thine is the glory and the kingdom forever and ever. And we don't pray that way.
No.
And it feels to me
Not
like
normally.
this is sort of what you're talking about is, hey, prayer in an expansive sense, it's not the conversation can be better than it is if you can prepare for it, if you can frame it right, get yourself in the right
Yeah.
position vis-a-vis the Lord. Am I thinking about this right? Am I
Yes,
following
totally.
you?
So think about, like, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I've asked this question to a number of people, and including myself.
Uh-oh.
I would think in the past, when I would think about prayer, you'd say, what would be a good prayer? Like on a Wednesday night, you're going to bed. What's a solid prayer? And I would say my experience was like 10 minutes. Like if I had a good 10, 15-minute prayer, that's a
good long prayer.
a good long prayer.
Yeah.
In worship, we don't even call that the warm-up yet.
Oh.
Like worship can be a 2-hour thing, a 3-hour thing.
Yeah.
15 minutes in, you are just beginning to start to connect.
Yeah.
And that sounds arduous and undoable. But when you experience worship, it is something that you do not want to move out of. When you move into it, you're like, I do not want this thing to stop. I want this more than anything.
Well, it sounds arduous, but compared to what, right? I mean, there are a lot of spiritual traditions. Look at the sort of the old Jewish practices of reciting the names of God, where depending on what you're doing, it may be hundreds of hours of it's not even really prayer in the sense that it's something else, right? It's a
connection point.
It's a connection. It's putting yourself.
Yeah.
And I think people would say, I think psychologists maybe would say, you're looking to set aside your ego. If you're doing something like reciting the 72 names of God and all the permutations from Exodus 14, you're trying to stop being attached to Daveness.
Yeah.
And so that you can be attached to God. And maybe that's also sort of in the same space.
It's precisely what it is. And that's one of the ways we can talk about it. It's cultivating an atmosphere in which you can commune with God. And this is why prayer for me before was short, because we like to talk about a conversation, but am I really having one? I mean, I could have revelation what to pray for. Worship is communion. And if you feel like God is speaking back to you and feeding you in real time, that's where you don't want to stop. You're like, well, I want to stay in this forever. Like, it is cultivating an atmosphere in which you are inviting the presence of God to commune and to locate. Before we unpack that a little bit, can I give a quick analogy that I think would be helpful? That was helpful for me.
Yeah.
That I think would get us to that maybe a little bit faster. One of the things that I realized for myself, and so, when I'm talking about my own experience, and hopefully it resonates with somebody outside of me, right? And so my experience was, I talk a lot about mountains, like climbing the mount, like the mount of the Lord, coming into the presence of the Lord. Like I really love the mountain imagery and the principles in the scriptures, because it's so useful. It's not only symbolic, there's a literalness to it. And the way I've always perceived my prayers subconsciously, or maybe mostly subconsciously, but a little bit consciously, is I'm going to prayer to extract a blessing from the Lord, right? I'm going to ask for something. I need help. And if things are particularly difficult for me, I'm going to pray longer because I need more help from him. And if things are going really great, I'm not usually having really intense long prayers because things are going pretty well. What I found is that the mountain I'm climbing is really, personally, I'm driving towards an end that I want, that I see God as a co-participant in helping me get. So I'm negotiating with God, usually in my prayers in some way. Like I'm asking for a blessing. I'm trying to find out how to get that blessing. I'm trying to align my will up a lot because I believe that he's going to give it to me if our wills are aligned. But I'm aligning my will with him so I can get the thing that I perceive that I want. And it's a negotiation. I'm engaging him to get something. And that's why when things go really bad, it was really easy for me to like blame God. Like,
Sure.
why are you letting this happen to me? I thought we were friends. Didn't I do X, Y, Z over here? What's the problem? And things are going great. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for these blessings, But if it turns the next day, what happened? because he's a negotiation. I'm wrestling with him. And the Lord, like, one day showed this to me. And he's like, this is fine. But what do you seek at the top of that mountain? He's like, I know you believe that I'm there with you in that thing. But what if you just sought me for me and sought me for my sake? And that was the top of the mountain. And that was a big shift for me. I was like, whoa, yeah, that's true. I don't actually do that. I'm always negotiating for something, even if it's like really good thing. That shifted my worship, because now I'm going to go to you, God, not to extract a blessing. I'm going to go because I want to know you for your sake. And I want to commune with you for your sake, not what you can get me, but because you're God and I want to know you. That was a big game changer. So worship is about me going to try to know God and to worship him and to serve him, not because I have a need. And it's not that it negates that need, because that need comes up. He introduces that, and he can magnify that blessing in a way that to worship that I couldn't in normal prayer. The second thing that was a game changer was this, and I apologize if I'm talking too fast because there's so many things that I want to lay out for this. I don't know if this will resonate with you, and it may or may not resonate with the listener, but this was a big change for me. In the Restoration, because the Restoration was such a powerful thing, when we say what the nature of God is, us members of the church, we check that box very quickly because we think if the Restoration produced anything, it reorganized our understanding of the nature of God first and foremost.
Right out of the bat.
Out of the bat.
1820.
Right.
Yeah.
In the grove, he immediately sees God, and all of a sudden God has
a body. There's Father and a Son.
Right.
Yep.
The Trinity immediately gets overturned, the traditional view of the Trinity. So understandably, us Latter-day Saints check the box of who God is very quickly. Joseph Smith comes out and he releases Lectures on Faith, and we had a conversation around this, and I think Lectures on Faith may be equal to anything else he gave the Restoration, if not the greatest thing. And I don't think that's an overstatement. In Lectures on Faith, he says, in order to have faith in God, you have to have a correct understanding of his character, attributes, principles, etc., right? Mm-hmm. To paraphrase. And I think we as Latter-day Saints, myself included, check those boxes very quickly. Yeah. God's my Father, has a body. Yeah. He loves me. He wants me to be blessed.
Got it.
Covenants. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
What the Spirit told me was, those are important things to frame. But when Joseph Smith in Lectures on Faith says that really the only way you can know God is if it's revealed to you by the Holy Ghost. And that was a reason to pause on that and go, wait a second. I already know enough about him to pray with faith. And the Spirit's like, no, you don't. Because in the space, so it's like a framework of God's my Father, has a body, I'm his child. That's a framework. But outside of that, my image of God that I have that I'm praying to is a formulation that fills the gaps. And in my experience, it filled the gaps with, when I started thinking about it, God was sort of like my youth bishop, the authoritative figure that I would have to talk to, engage if I was being good or not. Okay. Or for someone it could be like their father, right? The respected authority figure that kind of replicated the idea of God on earth. And then the next thing I learned was, and this could just be for me, I don't know if this will resonate with you or not, but God was like, the image I had of God was like my own self perfected. Like the perfect version of myself. So when I think about like love, what was perfect love look like? Well, it's my concept of perfect love, what it should look like. And I'd forecast that on God, or justice, or what things should look like, what perfection did look like, was sort of like my own egoic state in its perfected way is what God is. And then the math on that becomes really obvious quick. Like this is why everyone believes God agrees with their politics, right? It's like a joke.
Yeah.
You can be the most progressive member of the church, most conservative, and they both think God's on their side,
Sure.
right? Because your vision of God, your image of God is just your projected state. And what is politics? But politics is just your religious faith views extrapolated and put into a social structure. I mean, that's just all it is. Your politics is just a reflection of your faith. So this was a big awakening to me. It's like, whoa. I think it's in Moroni where he says, the God of your imagination, the God that you've imagined up into yourself, right? And this line kept ringing in my mind and in my heart. The God you've imagined up into yourself. And I was like, wait a second. This is why my faith has been haphazard in its effect, in its result. Because to pray to God with faith, I actually have to pray to a God that I actually have pure knowledge over. And the God I'm praying to is kind of myself, perfected in a future state. It sounds weird, but it's the way I understood it.
No, that's super interesting. It suggests, I mean, I don't know if we're going to end up and you're going to sort of give us tips, but it suggests an inventory, by which I mean an introspection, right? Maybe how to think about, who am I really praying to?
Exactly.
Am I really praying to God my Father, whom I have had to seek to know by having him reveal himself to me? Or am I praying to a kind of a mirror?
Exactly. And perhaps that's why my prayers were only 10 minutes long. Because I'm praying to my perfected version of myself, and I kind of know what I think, and I'm kind of trying to get that guy to help me out, to get what I want. It had okay results, but why doesn't it have the results like you see in the scriptures?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a game changer because it caused me to go, whoa, what is my understanding of God really informed by? And who's informing it? That alone may have been one of the biggest leap forward in my own personal faith and spiritual journey. So worship began like this, and it continues like this every day for me. God, I'm here to seek you. I don't feel like it. In fact, I feel a lot not like it, but I'm here to worship you. And will you teach me something about yourself? Will you teach me something, a portion of you that I can know and have faith in? And I listen to that carefully. And it's never ceased to produce something that surprises me and expands my understanding. For example, I'll give you one of like 100. When you ask questions like that, he's so earnest to teach you about him if you ask the right questions. So, for example, he says, I love to give gifts to my children. I'm a giver of gifts. When you feel that in the spirit, it's not intellectual. It's not book discovery. It pierces your heart and your mind. You're like, oh, I can ask you for things because I know you want to give me a gift. So I say, okay, God, thank you. You're so gracious. I can have faith in you because you want to give me things. I'm your son. What's a gift that I can obtain from you? What would you like to give me? Because I'll receive it in faith now because I know that about you. And you see how that conversation transpires and how that would move your ability to relate and commune with God. Because in my own practice, it's always teach me something about you tonight or today that I can exercise faith in. And he might say, I love to forgive sins. Will you confess all of your sins to me? Yes, I would love to do that. So he's like, stand up, because it's worship. Stand up, confess your sins. It's like 1 a.m. I'm in my living room. I'm like, will you help me? No. Like, I know a lot of them, and I'll confess them. But if you'll walk me through, I'll confess. And I'm speaking them out in confession. And I'm finding that, like, in the confession of my sins, It's bringing me back to a state where I can fully own and obtain the agency that was given up when I committed those sins. It's like being restored to me. And I don't know how to explain this, but I can feel the kingdom of the devil beginning to shake under the confession of sin. I can feel his foundations of the things that he's trying to build in my life for strongholds. I can feel those things shaking. And I'm like, what is happening? And the Lord's teaching me, when you confess your sins, you take away his power to be an accuser in your life. I want you to confess, not because I want you to feel crappy, but I want you to reclaim territory in the name of Jesus Christ and detach yourself from the power of the adversary. And I could feel that. That, David, is worship. The Lord is going to take you into a communal situation where there's all of these things, I'm going to call them elements because I don't know what else to call them, that you can be led to do that will produce different results that draw you into deeper knowledge, spiritual configuration with the Lord, knowledge of the Lord. So that night I learned that the confession of sins is an element of worship. Now, do I do that every night? No, because there's these elements that you can do as the Lord tells you. It's happened more than once, but it's not formulaic. It's a pattern. And so there's a lot of these, and some of these include things like stand and give gratitude for everything that you can think about your wife, your spouse, everything. And then I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you insight. So giving gratitude for your spouse is worshiping God? Yeah, it is. The confession of sin, the intercession for others. Today I want you to intercede for so-and-so who you perceive as your enemy. Will you tell me everything good about them that you can identify? Okay, that's hard. Yeah, this guy has been really hard in my life. I think this about him. I think this is good about him. This is good about him. The Spirit takes you through that, and you're making intercession, and all of a sudden you're praying in the Spirit for that person. And all of a sudden you're pleading for the Lord to give grace and mercy, inject it into that person. And you feel the atmosphere shift around you. That's worship. So there's all of these elements that I could actually spend a lot of time talking about just in 6 months. And so worship to me is, it always culminates in prayer, so to speak, because at a certain point, he almost always invariably says, now let's talk about the thing that's on your mind and your heart. And I say, will you teach me how to think about it? Okay, yeah, this is how you should think about it. This is how you should ask about it. What blessing do you want now? Because the Spirit has been built up. So let's zoom out from this for 2 seconds. One definition of worship is that you're cultivating atmosphere. You're building out a structure of atmosphere in which the Spirit of the Lord, his messengers, and even the Lord himself can reside in. You're developing space. That space is inside you. So you worship to clear out the space in you so that you can be a host of the Spirit of the Lord. And the space outside of you becomes a structure in which you can host the Spirit of the Lord. So it's the building and cultivating of atmosphere. And then things can dynamically happen in that atmosphere that are, frankly, always a little surprising. It's a living thing. It's not rote. It's not formulaic. And every day it's new and it's fresh. And it delivers something that I hadn't supposed previously. So that's one definition.
Yeah, wow.
Does that make sense? Or sometimes I wonder if I'm just speaking in a way that's...
I don't know that it has to make sense. This is interesting. One of the questions that I know you characteristically like to ask is, does it taste good? Which I think is a very interesting question. And I'm not sure why you ask it, but to me, what it suggests, it evokes images of the fruit of the tree of life, but also the I think it permits the listener to respond and say, it tastes good, it feels good, it seems right, in a non-analytical kind of mode, right? In a, which I think that's really powerful. So I think it tastes good. I think it tastes good to me, Todd. I don't want to make this too sort of autobiographical, but this has sort of become a big part of your personal spiritual practice over the last years is sort of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and recently, like the last 8 months. So I was listening to an interview with somebody who was talking about this that's not in our faith.
Yeah.
And they made a comment to her, and they said, "You do this for 2 to 3 hours a day?" And she's like in her mid-40s. And she goes, "Oh yeah, you have to. Like, if you want to commune with the Lord, you have to." And like, "Well, how long have you been doing that?" She goes, "Well, since I was 19. And that blew me away. I was like, "Well, how is that even possible? How is that even like a thing?" So my and I'm only speaking from my experience, but first of all, doing this for an extended period of time is not hard. Once you begin to like commune and that presence is building, it becomes the most delicious thing to you. And so when you say I bring up this thing of taste, and you say the tree of life, well, that's exactly what it is. It's from Alma 32, because Alma 32 is actually talking about, for lack of a better term, the mechanics of building a tree of life.
Sure.
Right? It's the seed to the fruit.
Sure.
And he says you'll build a tree of life will spring up within you.
Yep. And it's interesting to me because that's Alma 32, right? And the question the Zormite Poor ask is, what can we do now that we've been thrown out of the building? And the answer is,
can you worship only there?
Right. And it's faith, right? And they get to end of what's now 32 and chapter 33 starts. And the next question is, okay, I'm paraphrasing. Like, that sounds good, but like, really, what is it? And then the next chapter 33 is about praying always. This is zenith, right? This is pray when you're in the wilderness and you're in the closet and your enemies are hunting you, and right. And so I think what you were talking about is very strictly by the book, where the book is Book of Mormon, right? And so yes, it does taste sweet to me. This feels right.
Yeah. So it's interesting when the Lord teaches you a principle, how all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is hiding in plain sight. Because even bringing up Alma 32, to your point, the whole context of that is, where can you worship? And all of a sudden, like, wait a second, he's talking about something more profound than sitting in sacrament meeting, right? Sacrament meeting, by the way, should reflect this more, I believe. And that's another conversation to have. But in Alma 32 and 28, he says, if you give place that a seed may be planted in your heart, behold, if it be a true seed or a good seed, if you do not cast it out by your unbelief, that you will resist the Spirit of the Lord, behold, it will begin to swell within your breasts. And when you feel these swelling motions, you will begin to say within yourselves, it must needs be that this is a good seed, that the word is good, for it beginneth to enlargeth my soul, it beginneth to enlighten my understanding, it beginneth to be delicious to me. Because you can taste light. You can taste it. Light is, it affects every aspect of your being, from your mind to your heart to your spirit to your body. And what worship does, and this is definition number 4 or whatever, is worship brings into unity your mind, your heart, your spirit, and your body into sanctified unity. Worship is active sanctification. So by the process of worship, and it's not because, not that this needs to be said, that God's a narcissist and he demands the worship of his creatures because he needs to be fed. He commands us to worship him because it's the thing that draws his life, his nature into us the fastest. So when you worship, it is a process of bringing the entire body into submission to God. And it does it very quickly. Worship draws you in to the patterns and experience of heaven. It does. It cultivates the spirit of heaven where you are. And so it's not just an internal thing. It affects the space around you. And if you worship in more and more powerful dimensions, your marriage will start to resonate in that worship. Your children will be in that influence, and they'll start to experience it, that atmosphere around them that will start to have power in their life. Your home will take upon itself the form, because worshiping is to become informed literally, like you're in the form of the thing you're worshiping. So one thing that's interesting about worship is that everyone worships. Like, you can't escape worship. Every human being on this earth, I think probably without exception, is in a form of worship, because worship is the acknowledgement and the identification of a hierarchy of good or something desirable that you're going to sacrifice to. So if the thing that you want the most on this earth is money, then you're going to worship money and the things that bring it. And you will begin to be informed by that. You will take upon yourself the image of that thing, and you will be a reflection of that desire. So whether it's money or status, like our biggest worship platforms are social media platforms. It's where most of our worship occurs. It's what you want to sacrifice to when you have free time. So think about, I do this a lot, what do I do when I have free time? That's a really good indication to find out what you worship. If you have free time, do you want to go to a private corner and confess God and say, I love you and I'm seeking you, I'm seeking your face, I'm seeking a deeper communion? Or are you like me, who's really reflexively will pick up social media and start scrolling? Because the things I love are being given to me in a loop that I want to start to reflect in my own life, whether it's the political thing I'm interested in.
All the dank memes, all the reinforcement from friends.
So do you see how we're constantly worshiping?
Well, so there's something really interesting, at the risk of being too pithy, right? What you're describing is a discipline to try to move from a state where your God is a reflection of you to a state where you are a reflection of God.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I think what you were saying is, you're asking God, you're creating time and space and asking God, tell me what I need to do next to do that. And you're talking about a process where I don't say, okay, end of the day, I got to be in bed at 10:15. So I got 5 minutes and 30 seconds for prayer. You're talking about a practice where you make time and you try to be mindful and active, and you're inviting God to tell you what is not what is the goal, what is the step in front of me, so that I can know, so that I may know Thee.
Yeah.
And you're saying that the not the end, but what happens on that road is you increasingly become a reflection of God.
Yeah, because you're submitting yourself to the presence of the Spirit in a consistent exposure. So you become what you're exposed to the most. Like if you sit in hell long enough, you're going to look like hell. If you are able to cultivate the presence of the Lord and you confront that and you expose yourself to that presence consistently over time, that's how you obtain the image of Christ. So worship is only effective, really. I mean, I shouldn't say only, because you should worship even if it's a small amount. What's available to you today, I should say, what's available to anybody today, is that they will go to God and say, I'm here to worship you, and I'm going to endure to the end of this worship session today. Meaning I'm not going to break off until you conclude it endure to the end every day in that session, because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's a test. Like, you're tired. Are you going to worship me, or are you going to retreat to bed and start tomorrow? And the Lord, to me, is very gracious. He's like, you can go to bed. But what do you want? Do you want to know me, or do you want to sleep? And I'm like, I want to know you. Okay, well, my experience has been that grace floods into you in a way that compensates for anything. And so the power comes in. And if you commit yourself to consistency, that's the key. Consistent worship. Like, consistent. You have to do it often, like regularly. And you don't put a parameter on it. You say, Lord, I'm here until you're done with me. Watch your world restructure itself in a week, in a month, in a day. Like, I don't think I've had a single experience in worship where at the end of it, I couldn't wait to go to bed. It was, I want to be in this place forever. And I have to go to bed now. The Lord's saying, go to bed. And I'm asking, well, can I pick up tomorrow? Because I don't want to leave this. It produces results faster than anything I've ever experienced. And I don't believe it's unique. I believe that is what is possible for anybody, no matter where you're at, if you will begin to worship God. So, yeah, like you're cultivating space where heaven can be reflected. You are, it is a form of spiritual warfare, actually.
Tell me about that.
The way that the adversary has power over us is through our unbelief, right? We believe things that aren't true, or we don't have belief in God. He controls us through fear, because fear is the first fruit of the fall. Like, when you are separated from God, the first fundamental experience you have is fear. We see that in the endowment, right? Like Adam and Eve, the first thing they do is fear. Fear becomes the driving force of the actions of most of your life, at least mine, right? I'm responding in fear, or it's about controlled fear. So you have fear and you have unbelief, and then you have the sins that are products of your unbelief and the sins that are products of your fear. Like, pride isn't your fundamental problem. Pride is a result of fear. It's a fear response, right? Like, think about most of your sin that you carry on in. It's mostly fear at the root. When you go to God, to know God, to have an encounter, that encounter in any domain displaces fear out of you, because it's partaking of the fruit of the tree of life. When you're cut off from the tree, as in Adam and Eve, and we see this great pattern, you fear and you seek to hide yourself. And you clothe yourself in the things of the world that you believe are going to protect you in your vulnerable, fallen state. When we come back and fuse back into the tree, fear is displaced, it's overcome, and therefore the root of sin is overcome within us. So if you want to conquer the adversary, worship God, and he will displace fear out of you, and you will overcome the sins that you wrestle with every day of your life. They will be taken out of you. Then the threats around you, environmentally, physically, will shift. Because if you're cultivating the presence of God, if you're bringing down his spirit, if you're a host for it, the things around you can't help but to respond to it. So when Nephi is on the ship, and the ship is going down because it's a massive storm, and he's tied to the mast, what does Nephi do?
He prays.
He worships.
Does it say worships?
I think he says he praises, but he worships God.
Okay, all right.
And what does that do? It shifts the environment. This is not Pollyannish Nephi.
Yeah.
This is Nephi engaging in a spiritual warfare, in a power against the dominion of the adversary that can displace his power and his influence. You can do this through worship. If you have a fear in your life that's paralyzing you, start worshiping God. This is why in the New Testament, I think it's Romans 10, it says, give the sacrifice of praise. The sacrifice of praise shifts things around you in a way that is supernatural. It's not natural. I've noticed that people in my life, when I felt that they were in trouble or being influenced by the adversary in ways that they were suffering from it, like maybe my kids were having a hard time. If I worship, it shifts the environment around them in a way that can displace the adversary in that space, because he has territorial dominion. And if you're taking back territory through active worship, it really does have a supernatural effect. Anyway.
Wow, fascinating. So is this a, man, I want to be careful how I ask this next question. So you've talked about this as a thing that one does alone. Could you envision, it seems to me this, you could have, our church meetings are not structured like this at all. On the sort of pendulum motion between top-down, kind of organized, and sort of following the Spirit, we're somewhere over towards top-down organized. We have we have a program, right? I'm not sure I've been in a meeting, maybe once or twice, where someone said, I know the program says this, but actually now we're going to do this other thing, and right. It feels to me like maybe this sort of approach could be, you could engage in this sort of a thing at a larger scale than just your own personal worship. It seems like maybe in your family or as a couple, this might be a thing you could do also.
Well, absolutely. This is, if 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I'll be in their presence.
Yeah.
And to that point, that actually came to mind one evening as I'm engaging in active praise and worship of God and responding to the Spirit and the things that he's telling me.
Yeah.
That came to mind. I said, well, there's, I can wake my wife up who'd be really happy to worship with me because we're in that same space together. But he said to me, why don't you invite angelic angels? Love to praise. In fact, it's the environment that actually draws them in. Like when you have visions of God, what do you usually see? Is you see concourses of angels around the throne of God. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for it. It cultivates an atmosphere. So when 2 to 3 are gathered in my name, I'll be in their presence. That's the idea of a sacrament meeting, that you're coming together in a unified body. I believe that the prerequisite for that unification is something like the thing that we hear about in the temple when we're about to engage in prayer, that there should only be good feelings. I think that's a prerequisite for all group ordinances. So sacrament being the other big obvious one.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that would be a marvelous thing for a ward to embark on. Say, hey, if we're going to take the sacrament together, why don't we work together to be of one heart before we engage this sacred ordinance, so that we are in a unified state, so that our worship in this space can have its intended effect. Years ago, I was in one of the presidencies in my ward, and a stake presidency member asked us to fast in preparation for a special meeting on a Sunday morning. We would come fasting. We did, not really knowing what the topic was going to be. We get to that meeting, and the topic was, how can we make our sacrament meetings better? How can we make them, higher and holier, like the thing that was said. And my response may have been a little bit flippant. Probably was a little flippant, but it was like, why are we fasting? We know, we've already been given instruction. We don't need to uncover some new secret to this. The scriptures tell us, pray when the Spirit moves upon you. Do the things as the Spirit moves upon you in that meeting, right? We're told in the Book of Mormon how to do these things. I believe when it comes to sacrament meetings that we have a structure that gives space to do precisely that. Like, why not? I don't know if you've had this experience. I've asked a lot of people about this, and I say, what's the best sacrament meeting you can remember? A lot of them will say things like, well, one Sunday the bishop said, we were going to sing this whole Sunday, and we're going to have people come up and give their favorite hymn, and we're all going to sing the first verse, and we're just going to do that today. Have you ever encountered anything like this?
Those are in fact some of my favorite meetings.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, I think to some extent it goes back to what we were both saying early on. I mean, I say that we don't pray doxologies. We don't, in our prayers, we don't have a practice of saying, "Thine be the power, thine be the glory." We worship Thee, right? We have we may say something very perfunctory up front. We're gathered here today, right? But then it's a bunch of thank you, please this.
Yeah.
Right.
Prayers to open the meeting. It's not to pray, it's to open the meeting.
But in our hymns is the one place where, and I didn't say this, but this was in my mind, and I was sort of wondering if you would get to hymns, to what extent you'd get to hymns in this discussion, right? Where we do that. I sing a hymn. If we all sing a hymn, we're not consciously asking for anything, right? We're praising, we're celebrating, maybe we're worshiping, right?
Yeah.
And so I think maybe the answer you're looking for is, hey, a meeting where you get together and you just sing is a meeting where nobody's trying to ask anybody for anything. Nobody is trying to teach or learn. Everybody is just there.
Eliminates any ego that might be in speaking.
Yep, that's right. Nobody is getting, except the conductor, doggone him. People are not there showing off, right? No one is getting the spotlight. Everyone is. The Dead Sea Scrolls people in a number of their texts give indication that they saw themselves as worshiping among the angels. The angels were with them worshiping.
Yeah.
And I think a meeting that is all music. Maybe is that, right? It takes the ego out, takes the doctrine out, takes out the left brain. Here are the rules. Here is the order of things. Here is who is in charge. That's all off to one side. Doesn't matter, at least for the moment. It's all forgotten. And what am I going to do? I'm gonna sing about Adam on Diamond, or I'm going to sing about,
I'm a child of God.
I'm a child of God, or there is a green hill far away, or what right. And so, yeah, some of my best church meetings have been purely musical. I think my wife would say the same. I don't really have a church career, Todd. I get I currently have no calling. My last calling was Elders Quorum Secretary. Before that, I was the physical facilities rep. So, there are men who kind of climb the ladder. I'm nowhere near the ladder. But my wife has had a sort of a career. She has been a church music person. And I don't think she's done it out of ambition. I think she's done it out of joy. I think she has the background in various ways and really loves to lead the choir, participate in the choir, lead music, direct music, provide an abundance. And I think this is probably why.
Yeah.
Is for the nature of the worship that it is.
100%.
Yeah.
In fact, when I talk about these elements of worship,
yeah,
one of them is, and man, if you know me, I do not sing. In fact, it's a net negative for me to sing in a meeting. And that's not fake humility. So, within the first couple of weeks of my own practice, I present myself to the Lord, say, okay, I'm here. He's like, okay, I want you to sing to me. I'm like, no, you don't. That's so uncomfortable. That's so not in my domain.
That's awesome.
So, okay, well, here I am. I'll sing a hymn to you. Can you imagine what that releases?
Yeah.
And another time, so that has become actually kind of a common thing that he'll say, I'm going to put something in your heart. I want you to sing it back to me. I want you to allow the music to come out of you in that thing. And I'm not musical, so this is not leveraging a talent that I have.
Yeah.
But that thing came out and it was new and it was fresh and it harmonized with something in heaven and it drew something in that I couldn't produce any other way, So when it comes to church, just as you described, imagine a sacrament meeting where maybe you did have someone prepared to say something, maybe a talk, and maybe that's 8 minutes of the entire meeting, or whatever. And the other part is the bishop is praying earnestly to say, okay, what is the need today? I'm going to ask these two youth to bear their testimonies. We're going to have 2 songs. I'm going to ask Sister so-and-so because I feel like I need to ask her to pick one. I'm going to have the chorister pick another. And we're going to do that today. And watch what gets birthed in that moment. Or, you can imagine 100 different ways that this gets sliced up. Like today we're just going to have testimonies on this principle. Or today we're going to spend 20 minutes. Anybody who had something that they're deeply grateful for this week, you have 1 minute come up. We're going to do it. And it's going to be, you know what I mean? Like you could do this in a way. Or the Johnson family just had this tragedy. We're going to spend some time praying for them in the middle of our meeting. We're going to have brother so-and-so come up, and we're going to have sister so-and-so come up. They're going to offer up prayers back to back, and we're going to pray and supplicate for them. And then maybe the sacraments at the end of this, because we're building and we're cultivating a spirit in that room. We're building a domain. We're inviting it in that can culminate with this sacramental experience.
Yeah.
Would that change? Would you be bringing your friends to that?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doctrinal or organizational reason we couldn't do that. I think we don't have a practice. We don't have. People would need to have the. I think it'd be extremely powerful, right? I can imagine ways it could go weird, but that's always risk when you're trying to listen to the Spirit. Is it things will go?
Yeah, life creates weird things, right?
Yes. I think if you were sort of, I don't want to use the word conducting. If you were sort of the one who was making space for that, I think you'd want to listen very carefully to the Spirit, and also just be real thoughtful. But I think it would be a very different kind of church experience. It might be a much more powerful one.
I've had these conversations before, right? Like with some people, and one of the responses was, well, when the bishopric determines who's going to speak, they do it by the Spirit, so it's being led by the Spirit.
Sure, but it's in theory 6 to 8 weeks out in advance.
And there's obviously truth in that.
Yeah.
But there's also a principle in the Scriptures that says, speak in the moment given by the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
So you cultivate the words of the gospel. You cultivate the word. You obtain the words.
And then in the moment, it'll be given
in the
you
moment.
what to say. Yeah.
Why is that an isolated principle? Why is that not a principle of worship collectively?
Yeah.
And you can have portions that you plan for. I think that's. Obviously, I'm not even like proposing anything. I'm just saying.
Sure.
This could look
Presumably
really different.
someone's still going to come in and prepare bread and water for the sacrament, for example. Presumably, right? There will be. It's not planningless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might say, hey, I feel like our brother Dave should come talk about faith. And I'm going to call him this morning. Say, Dave, I feel something about this. Would you be open to coming and discussing this, maybe sharing a few scriptures and what you've learned? Just think about how dynamic it could be and how living it could be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever you do in a microcosm can be replicated in a macrocosm. And I think that's exactly what that would look like. And instead of having like goals and programs that how are we going to get more people to sacrament meeting, how are we going to get less active people to come? Well, they don't come because they're not being fed. Like, no. How many times have I had this discussion with people and they say, well, the responsibility is upon you to have a good sacrament meeting. Why don't you rehearse in your mind scriptures or give yourself a talk? And it's just like, that's just mind bending to me. Like, of course, that's probably true. But no, you want to, if we're the restored gospel,
yeah,
it should be a thing that all their friends say, I've got to bring everybody I know to come witness this thing because it births something every day that makes me want to draw closer to God. I lose the desire for sin. I have more faith, and I can't wait to come back next week.
Yeah.
And we would stop having 2-hour meetings. We want to have 5-hour meetings. Everyone rejoices. We go to 2-hour meetings. It's like, are you crazy?
The rumor is 1 hour now, Todd.
The rumor is 1 hour. It's like
they're piloting it in Idaho. I'm 100% sure.
I hear that too. I don't know if it's true or not, but
I've heard it before. Could be true.
A people who love Jesus Christ and want to worship Him want more worship. They don't want less.
It's interesting because I'm. It seems certain to me that if you ask 100 people, tell them about your best church experience, and then you said, what made it best? I don't think people would say, I think no one would say, we stuck to the program and everyone hit exactly the projected time and it was really well organized. You know, it feels like that's not it. I think that we sort of think about those things. We sort of teach those things as a skill. Those are useful in life. You know, if you're an employee of Intel or something, right? But that isn't what makes a life-changing spiritual encounter.
Right. It's the power. It's practicing the forms without the power thereof.
Yeah, I remember I watched an interview, and I don't remember who this was. I feel like it might have been on like Rick Bennett's program. I saw this on YouTube. I mean, this is meta, so I'm going to refer to a thing I saw on YouTube here on YouTube. And I forget the details, but it was an evangelical, not evangelical, a Pentecostal who had read the Book of Mormon and then was invited to go to a Mormon service, and he went, and his description was very funny. He said, "I went, put my seatbelt on, I was ready for all the wild gifts of the Spirit that I was sure were going to erupt because of what I've read in the Book of Mormon." And you know, then that wasn't it at all, right? So again, this is interesting, right? Being moved by the Spirit to speak, to prophesy, to sing together, it would be a different kind of practice, and it would at least be consistent with the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. Worship engaged, there's always a direct result, I believe, every time that is predictable, and that is it produces a broken heart and a contrite spirit. It always does. It's because the broken heart, it's really easy to think of a broken heart as like a disappointed heart. You know, like you get through a breakup or something.
She said no.
You said no.
Yeah.
That's a broken heart. That's not a broken heart.
Yeah.
A broken heart is a heart that is broken of its hardness and its attachment to things that are not of God.
Interesting.
Okay, so to break one heart, and the broken heart is the prerequisite to almost everything you're seeking spiritually in your life. Like, you know, you look at 3 Nephi 9:20, and he said that if they come unto me with broken hearts and contrite spirits, then I will baptize them with fire and the Holy Ghost. Nephi in Nephi 4 says, may my heart be broken and my spirit contrite, so that the gates of hell are shut continuously before me. So it's spiritual warfare. The brother of Jared, Moroni talking about the brother of Jared, talks about the broken heart and a contrite spirit being the precursor to experiencing the same veil-rending experience that the brother of Jared did, right? I think it's 2 Nephi 9 that says that the ends of the atonement are only unto those with a broken heart and a contrite spirit. It's the condition of being that puts yourself into possession of every spiritual endowment that you're probably seeking. Worship is the closest, most direct route to receiving a broken heart, because you're actively, consciously, by your own free will and choice, putting yourself into subjection to the Spirit with the intent to mirror and to come into spiritual resonance with it. And the Spirit is the thing that breaks your heart. It's the Spirit. If you want to have experience with a broken heart, the kind that fills you with joy and power, go to the Lord in a quiet place and ask Him, what do you think of me? How do you feel about me? And be open to that response. Be open to the kind of communication that will come to you when you feel the love of the Lord for you specifically, not for humanity in general, not for mankind, but for you, Dave. You feel the Lord's love for you. It breaks you of any entanglement that doesn't want to bind to His love. And that opens space for the remission of your sins, for the seeking of the Lord, to rending a veil, to obtaining a blessing from heaven for someone else. So actively worshiping is a way to daily have your heart broken. And there's no more power than that, if that resonates. Worship is an act of surrender. It's active submission. It's saying, I'm here to submit. The greatest worship that we give to the Lord is obedience. So it's coming to him, fulfilling the command to pray always and to worship him. And then you're obtaining from him the direction that he's going to give you in your life, that when you're obedient to it, it will open the powers of heaven on your behalf. Worship establishes heaven on earth. It's what draws it down. It's what puts it on the ground. It's what puts it in your family. So it is the active submission to God to replicate the power and life and influence and structure of heaven on the earth, in your body, in your family, in your physical home. The walls of your home will start to imprint with the worship and the atmosphere of heaven that is drawn into it, and you'll be able to hold and manifest and carry that presence with you. So it is the fastest way. That's why I say it's a silver bullet. Everything you want in this life is on the other end of worship. And when you go into that, you're going to be asked to sacrifice. Something in you should die every time you worship and be reborn every time you worship, right? You're giving something of yourself, and you're coming out a new creature in every way, like every time you go through it. And so if someone wants to close the gap and they're tired perhaps of this image that I just have to do like 1% better every day, and if I just keep drudging along at these basics that I've been given, hopefully by the time I'm 80 years old and I'm serving in the temple and I'm retired, something might pop for me and I get it. But other than that, I'm just trying to like hold on with faith and get through the daily grind. Worship is going to be the thing that will change your life so radically you may not be able to contain it. The way you live your life is always a reflection of your worship life. Your entire day will reflect it. And so you get worship right, it will not be contained to that moment in that room in you. It will begin to manifest outwardly in a way that will, I think, will surprise anybody who engages in active, consistent worship.
Yeah. Todd, thanks for coming. Appreciate you sharing this stuff with us. It's all very precious, and it's also very intimate. So I respect your courage in sharing it.
Well, I hope it affects someone and they seek God with greater diligence, because he will bless them.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah,
I hope so too. Thank you all for being here with us. I think this has been a very interesting but also moving conversation. I suspect you did too. And remember, until next time, stay curious and hungry.